Hey guys, it's Maiko. Just wanted to make a quick video sort of explaining what magic, alchemy, and science are. And, well, what I'm proposing is that they're all pretty much the same thing. They're all used for the same reasons, and they're just sort of different versions of the same thing. So basically, first was magic. Actually, I was in the rainforest for a little while, about 6 months in Peru. I studied shamanism quite a bit. I read this really interesting book called The Witch Doctor's Apprentice, where she talks about how there was this word that they always used, the indigenous people. It's basically about, the author was this lady, like a pioneer, who was seeking medicines, exotic medicines from the rainforest. She went researching for a pharmaceutical company only to find out that they were actually just going to destroy all her research because there's no money in cures. That's how it goes. But she was deep in the jungle, one of the first Westerners to be in there, and she noticed they kept using this word, Ikaro. And this basically, what I have understood it to mean is magic. It's a word that they would use to describe power, basically, that they didn't understand. So when, if somebody got sick or got killed by like a giant jungle creature, and they thought it was the work of a witch or a witch doctor, they would say that it was his Ikaro that he used. They would also use this word for healing. So if you went to a witch doctor and they gave you some kind of a medicine that healed you, that medicine was also considered an Ikaro. So an Ikaro is really just a form of power which is not fully understood. And so that's kind of what magic is too. Magic started out in the same way. It was just basically the realization that you could have an effect on reality. And to take it even more deeply, this is kind of an esoteric secret, so, close your ears if you're worried about getting hit off or whatever, but reality isn't just a game you play where all the rules are given to you and you're just supposed to follow them, but actually you are a co-creator in this reality. So in a sense, you are a part of God. You are God, and you perform God's will. And so magic was originally seen as this way to have an effect on reality and perform God's will, and play God, sort of. That's what's so interesting about it. It was really the realization that you could have an effect on your world. So people would call these great powers magical, usually because they didn't really understand how it worked. It was just some kind of like an art. And actually, art is considered to be one of the highest forms of magic because it is a direct interface to human consciousness, which is arguably one of the most powerful things that exist. So if you mess with magic, you're really messing with art. You're messing with symbols that interact with human consciousness and have an even greater effect on reality than many other things. Media is another word that would be synonymous to this. But anyways, let's trace it forward some more. So basically what happened is magic turned into alchemy when people realized that you can create new systems, new structures that are more efficient. They created alchemy, which was really a more advanced form of magic that had certain rules and it observed certain principles of reality, which you can read about in the Hermetic teachings. But really the key things to alchemy are realizing that reality itself is created by constituent components, so smaller pieces, particles if you will, and by understanding these components and their relationships together, that's truly how you can use them and have an effect on them, and sort of bend reality at your will. Another interesting hidden meaning about alchemy that not a lot of people realize, like a lot of mainstream society was kind of misinformed into believing that alchemy is about transmuting metals and trying to physically create gold out of, whatever shit. But really, this is symbolic for an even deeper meaning, and that is the ability to create gold from yourself. And this is truly the most powerful form of manifesting your will. It is the refining of the self, and thus just basically making it more efficient when you have an effect on reality or attempt to. So this is one of the hidden secrets of alchemy. The laboratory is not simply, your external environment, but it's actually your internal environment. It's actually the most powerful and relevant laboratory you have access to. Your own mind, your own body, and by using metaprogramming substances, as Robert Anton Wilson called them, drugs is another word, you can actually change your consciousness and even your physical chemistry to achieve certain goals. And obviously, they don't have to be physical drugs. You can use television, you can watch a movie, you can listen to a song. These are all forms of drugs or tools to perform alchemical rituals. So now let's talk about science. So science is basically the most refined version of all of these things. And what really sets science apart is it has this heightened skepticism that demands evidence and proof. And it's actually based on the notion of trying to discredit as many things as possible that aren't true, that are based on dogma and bad research, intuition, things like that. So it's basically, science is just alchemy that's based on data and based on the experimental method, the scientific method, I should say, of creating experiments to actually determine the effectiveness of any system, of any methodology. And what's really interesting about science is that it shows you what reality really is. And what reality really is there's no absolutes anywhere. There's simply consistencies, there's patterns, there's things that, there's not one thing that emerges everywhere all the time. I mean, there might be, depending on how you look at it, but really, what happens in reality is a multitude of patterns, some of which are more consistent than others, and so you can actually determine how real something is, how consistent it is, by running these experiments using the scientific method and realizing this is the most true thing, and that's how you achieve objectivity through science. So obviously we have this great distinction, and it's important that we have the distinction between them, but I think what's more important is realizing the ways that they all sort of converge. So share this video if you like it. Thanks, guys.